views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Open BXRx, BronxNet special coverage providing you the latest information, resources, services, and community efforts taking place locally here in the Bronx and virtually throughout the pandemic. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, and today is Tuesday, December 1st. Coming up, we'll discuss the impact COVID-19 has had on families with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and we'll learn about an upcoming virtual rally presented by the NYC Developmental Disabilities Council and participating families. Then, last month was Diabetes Awareness Month. Montefiore Health has always provided education to help patients improve their health. We'll discuss diabetes and diabetes technology with them later on. After that, the 2020 Johnny Pacheco Latin Music and Jazz Festival will be airing on a brand new show here on BronxNet. Stay tuned to find out about Giant Steps for the Bronx and how you can tune in every Friday starting December 4th. And we'll learn how Mercy Center continues to provide resources and services to families in the South Bronx throughout the pandemic. So please, stick around. Open BXRx starts now. Welcome to Open BXRX on BronxNet. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, inviting you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter, and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. According to new analysis, people with intellectual disabilities and developmental disorders are 3 times more likely to die if they have COVID-19. Group homes have reported 477 COVID-19 deaths as of November 4th. And with services being cut, the often forgotten most vulnerable continue to face the highest risk during this pandemic. On December 9th, the New York City Developmental Disabilities Council and families are holding a virtual rally to advocate for the safety and survival of people with disabilities during the pandemic. Joining us now to discuss are Joanne F. Siegel, president of the Bronx Developmental Disabilities Council, and Lucy Reyes. Lucy is a Bronx parent. Welcome. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. So first to start, Joanne, can you please tell us more about the Bronx Developmental Disabilities Council and the work you do there?
Sure. The Bronx DD Council is an association of parents, advocates, consumers, and some professionals concerned with the needs of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Intellectual disabilities refers to people who may have autism, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, and any type of neurological or learning problem, and usually occurs before the age of 22. We're one of 5 councils. New York City has a council in each borough, and we were actually mandated in the 1970s to help the city plan for services for individuals and their families that have IDD. And we contribute to an annual service plan and that talks about their concerns and the needs of the population. We meet monthly, and we have a lot of committees that also meet monthly to provide education services to the community. We have a health conference, a housing conference, and a family support conference, as well as meeting with legislators over the issues and concerns that we have.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Joanne. And as we know, families in the Bronx with disabled loved ones have faced numerous challenges prior to COVID-19. How has this pandemic exacerbated these challenges?
Okay, it's a complicated question because we go from birth through we go into adulthood through OPWDD. So we span the lifespan. So I thought if I talk a little bit about stages of life and the services that come with it. We have, when a child is born and there's some question about their development, many families go to their pediatrician, and the pediatrician refers them for what's called early intervention services. And that service category covers children from birth to 3 years of age. And it includes an extensive evaluation and then services that the child might need, like speech and language services, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and it's actually a large group of children that are served by that program, because it also includes children that might have some health problems and health issues at birth. But even before COVID, Medicaid had, it's a Medicaid-funded program. Medicaid had been reducing its coverage for these programs, and so there were wait lists. And unfortunately, I've worked with some families, and they had to wait even 6 months before a child could get any services or be interviewed for the first evaluation, and that's a long period of time in a child's development. After COVID, what we're seeing is that the evaluations are not being able to be completed. Many staff people are not willing to go into homes because that's where it's a home-based service. And so either they can't get into the home, or the family really doesn't want them at this point with the risk of getting COVID. They don't want the individual in. So it's really affected a lot of these young children. And this is a real problem that we're facing now. When a child reaches the age of 5, from 3 to 5, they go into preschool programs and then school age programs. And over the years, there are some programs that are part of our council. They're called 4410 schools and 853 schools. And therefore, children who would not get into public school because there was no placement, their disability is so severe that they need to, the Department of Education needs to contract with a nonprofit organization to do the services. Well, even before COVID, there were problems with maintaining staff because, again, the funding for these programs was less than what the Department of Education would normally pay a teacher. So we would lose very good qualified teachers to the Department of Education. Since COVID, and we had long waiting lists for these programs, okay? But since COVID, and people are afraid to have their children go out of the home, enrollment is now operating at about a 20% capacity. And they're either offering some remote learning for children, which really doesn't work for very young children, and certainly not for children who are autistic, okay? And so they're at 20% capacity, which means that they're not, but they still have these buildings, and they still might have staff that they want to keep on, and they're not getting the income that they should be getting. So they're in great jeopardy of closure. And this is a theme for all of the services. We have kids that then transition out of the school, the Department of Education, and they go into a system called New York State Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. And that department is funded, most of the services, through Medicaid and a lot of other federal monies. And we've been having problems over the years, again, because of cuts in Medicaid with financing these programs for adults. They include residences, they include day programs. Now, when COVID emerged, the real problem has been, number one, day programs could not remain open, and very few individuals are actually going to them even now because of the high risk of COVID. So they closed many programs, at least temporarily, but the fear is that they will not open. That is a fear that people have. The other problem is in residential care, people who are living in group homes or like apartment living type of situations. Again, the funding has been cut prior to COVID for many of these services. And so they were teetering on having problems sustaining themselves. But with COVID, what's happened is the state has not filled any of the openings because of financial reasons and concerns that they don't have enough money to cover. I just want to give you a statistic in terms of what's happening. In New York State, there's 140,000 children and adults in the OPWDD system. Because of COVID, 477 individuals have passed away because of COVID. And 90% of those individuals were living in group homes or congregate care settings. They had about, and this was as of November 4th of this year, they had about 3,906 confirmed cases of COVID, and staff, they had 4,911 staff members. So COVID is very rampant within the population. It's a very, very serious. A lot of people have medical conditions, and so it exacerbates the situation. The agencies have not been gotten funding to buy protective PPE, protective equipment, and they have not really gotten overtime. They've not been reimbursed for overtime, hazard pay, and it's just very, very serious problem.
And we're losing a lot of the DSPs,
That's
the direct support professionals that take care of our individuals. I know I'm sorry, Joanne, if I may. Even I can use my particular son's group home as an example. We have DSPs that are working 80 hours a week. And the state is not even facilitating to the agencies money for coverage. If you're not facilitating, who is going to take care of our children? Who's going to be with them? So we're losing DSPs left and right.
Those are some really staggering numbers, and thank you for sharing, Joanne. And I'm glad we have Lucy Reyes. She's a Bronx parent, and she's going to be able to share how the pandemic has really impacted her and her son's situation. Lucy, can you just elaborate a little bit more about the impact of the pandemic and why this upcoming rally is so important for you and the families of the Bronx especially?
Of course. This rally is essential. For so many years, even before the pandemic, our individuals, our families, have not been present in regards to the state. What am I trying to say to that? Before the pandemic, we were struggling, trying to get the services in place, clinical, therapeutic, the right school placement, before the pandemic. Now, in many cases, there is nothing open. Our guys are staring at the same four walls. I am so scared as a parent of a 26-year-old, dual diagnosis of autism and impulsive disorder. What is going to happen to my child? I'm a single parent. It was hard enough to get him placed. It took me 8 years to get him placed at the residence that he's residing in. And now, what's going on during this pandemic, I don't know if these agencies will even be open to continue serving our individuals. What am I supposed to do? And so many parents like me, what's going to happen to our children, to our individuals? As Joanne mentioned, our individuals run from the age of 3 all the way to 90. We have individuals that live in these group homes that are actually 90, that we lost a lot of them. That's why Joanne was mentioning that there's beds potentially available, but the state will not provide money to place the individuals that have been on a waiting list for years. I myself, my son, was on a waiting list for 8 years before the pandemic, before he was placed. Now he's not even receiving speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, behavior therapy, and he's regressing. My son has gotten to a point he's having outbursts like he did when he was 3. His communication skills lack now. Everything that was accomplished by the team that have worked with him throughout the years, on a matter of months.
Wow.
Now to even think about that, he might not even reopen because there is no funding. I'm terrorized. I'm thinking we might go back to Willowbrook. No one wants to go back to those years.
And Lucy is just one voice out of so many families that are suffering through these times and advocating for this important legislation to be passed for families and individuals with disabilities. Unfortunately, ladies, we have run out of time, but I do want to invite our viewers to come and attend the rally and help you get this message out and, you know, speak to the legislators. So please let us know where they can go, when it's taking place, what time, and how they can learn more about it at this time.
Okay, so it's the theme is Save Our Services. If anyone is interested in attending, I would suggest that they go to our website, www.bronxddcouncil.org, and we will be having information posted with the link, the Zoom link for this event. It will be done remotely, totally remote. So you can join us from your home. It will be on December 9th at 11 a.m. and last until 12:30. We're hoping to get our legislators there. Our goal is to ask our legislators, ask Governor Cuomo to be our hero. Go to Washington, get federal legislators to listen to us and get more dollars to the states. We need this money desperately.
Don't forget about us. Don't forget about our children. It's not fair that because they cannot vocalize what they're going through, being left behind. Please support us.
Thank you so much, Joanne F. Siegel, the president of Bronx Developmental Disabilities Council, and Lucy Reyes. She is a Bronx parent. Thank you both so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Again, folks, that information for the Save Our Services rally will be taking place on Wednesday, December 9th at 11 a.m. You can visit bronxddcouncil.org for more information on the rally. The New York City Developmental Disabilities Councils invites you to join them and share your story by emailing photos of your family, posters, and more to info@nycfair.org. We'll be right back.
Why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others.
For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
Welcome back. The Clinical Diabetes Center at Montefiore provides comprehensive care for adults with diabetes. Their goal is to teach and empower patients to improve their health. Joining us now to raise awareness and discuss diabetes technology to reduce complications, reduce the burden of living with diabetes, and improve quality of life and more is Michael Greenberg, nurse practitioner at Montefiore Health System. Welcome, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate it.
Of course. Just to start off, let's backtrack. Let's start with the introduction. So can you help us define what diabetes is, what the different types of diabetes are, and how they're caused?
Absolutely. So before I even say, well, what is diabetes? Whenever we eat anything with carbohydrates, that's your body getting fuel. So the simplest and most efficient way to fuel your body, to give it energy, is through carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are broken down into sugar, and you need to effectively use insulin to move the sugar into your body's cells. So in diabetes, whether it's type 2, which is more common, or type 1, there are defects in the body that either have insulin resistance or insulin deficiency. So both of which ultimately leave the person with diabetes with high blood sugar levels that can damage blood vessels. In type 2 diabetes, there's a lot of, I guess, lifestyle issues that go along with it. There's also a genetic predisposition to it. Type 1 diabetes is a rare autoimmune disorder where your body actually attacks the cells in the pancreas that make insulin. In type 2 diabetes, there are many different types of medications that we can use to help the body use insulin more effectively so that blood sugar isn't out of control, or to help the body make more insulin. In type 1 diabetes, it's really an insulin deficiency where your body just isn't making the insulin. So we have to replace it with insulin injections, or some people may use an insulin pump.
Thank you, Michael, for that information and helping us differentiate the different types of diabetes. Can you tell us a little bit about programs and services available to diabetes patients at the Montefiore Medical Center?
Sure. So, I'm really glad to be part of this center where I do believe we offer comprehensive care. So that means you may see a physician, a nurse practitioner like myself. We have access to a psychologist, dietitians. There is a nationally recognized diabetes education program that really helps people take control of their diabetes. And beyond that, the Fleischer Institute for Diabetes and Metabolism here at Montefiore is very big into research. So we're really trying to meet the community where they are and provide a wide variety of services while also expanding diabetes care through further research.
And in relation to COVID-19 and diabetes, does a certain type of the ones you listed, type 1, type 2, increase your risk of severe illness from COVID-19? Which one of those is more at risk, and how should a patient take care of themselves during this time?
So in terms of how do you take care of yourself in terms of this time, I'd say I would give the same advice to anyone, whether they have type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, or are otherwise healthy. Wear a mask, socially distance, wash your hands, be outside as much as you can when you're not able to wear a mask. And even mask wearing outside, I think, is recommended. So all these precautionary measures to prevent or avoid getting ill to begin with is our best bet. The data that we've seen really shows that having diabetes and other cardiac issues is not a good thing when it comes to COVID-19. People do much worse if they have diabetes, if they have heart disease, if they are overweight. All these play together and are related, and they just don't do nearly as well if they get sick with COVID-19. So, the other issue is to tease apart whether type 1 or type 2 is worse here. I would have a similar answer to if someone asked me, well, do I have the bad type of diabetes? I don't think there is a bad type of diabetes. I think you could live a very happy, long, healthy life with diabetes. The issue with the pandemic right now is that so many more people in general have type 2 diabetes. So the evidence that we see, the data that we see, is really coming from people with type 2 diabetes. I couldn't tell you that people with type 1 are off the hook. I don't believe that's the case.
Got it. Thank you for that. And what are some alternative diabetes treatments a patient can receive? We want to talk about CGMs and what that stands for, integration and insulin pens, and all these treatments that are available.
Sure. So ultimately in diabetes, to effectively treat your blood sugar, we need to know what your blood sugar is. So years ago, many years ago, patients would urinate on a certain type of dipstick, and it would be color coded, and you see, well, is my blood sugar low, high, or normal? Much more recently, they have pretty small and portable glucose monitoring devices where you have to do a finger stick. I don't know anyone who enjoys doing finger sticks. It is a needle to the finger. You have to draw a drop of blood and put it on a small stick, a small test strip, which is not easy. And you may have to do that multiple times per day. In more recent years, now you have continuous glucose monitors, which are wearable devices. You can wear them on the back of your arm. You can wear them on your abdomen, really anywhere there's a little bit of fat. There is also an implantable continuous glucose monitor. So you have different ways to wear this device, which is reading your blood sugar every few minutes over the course of the entire day. And if you compare that to doing a finger stick, which tells you what your blood sugar is at this moment in time, it doesn't tell you anything else, the continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, gives you much more data. It tells you what your blood sugar is at that moment. It gives you information about what direction it's going in and how quickly it's moving that direction, so you know if your blood sugar is rising, if it's falling, and if you need to take action to avoid a high blood sugar or low blood sugar. You can also generate reports and see what has your blood sugar been doing in response to food or response to exercise or any number of conditions, and really get a better sense of what works and what doesn't, so you can make the best decisions for yourself to treat your diabetes.
So when a patient goes into Montefiore, they have the option, a diabetes patient, they have an option between one or the other treatment. Is that the case with patients?
Not necessarily. I wish it was that easy. A lot of the times, insurance may dictate what patients are able to get. I'm a big proponent of diabetes technology myself. I think most diabetes tech, at least for the past few years, have been geared more towards people with type 1 diabetes, which really requires that you're on multiple daily shots of insulin or an insulin pump throughout the day. In type 1 diabetes, you can't use a lot of other medications that are available in type 2 diabetes. The benefit, or the one great thing about all these other medications that are available in type 2 is that so many of them now don't cause low blood sugar. So what we're really trying to do in type 1 diabetes is to control the blood sugar as tightly as possible without causing a lot of low blood sugar. And that's just that's a hard thing to do. So then you have the CGM come in, and it gives you so much more information to make these decisions. So with someone with type 1 diabetes, I really believe a CGM is a wonderful tool that they can use or have at their disposal. And yes, we will push for you to get that device if that's what you want. A lot of patients don't want to wear anything, and that's okay also. And we'll work with you where you are. It still requires a lot of finger sticks, though, to really get a sense of what's going on.
Thank you, Michael. And with technology surfacing and continuing to evolve, what types of technology are coming up next for diabetes patients? What is still needed to develop this technology or get this new technology?
So the last, say, couple of years, and even more recently the last 6 months and the last year, you've seen big improvements and big advances in how a continuous glucose monitor interacts with an insulin pump. And an insulin pump is a small wearable device that is usually attached with some tubing. Sometimes it's like a patch pump that you wear just on the back of your arm with no tubing at all. Everything exists right there on that device. But that is giving you insulin throughout the day. In the past, you had the pump that had its own program setting, delivering insulin to you at different rates throughout the day. And on top of that, the person with diabetes had to tell the pump how much insulin they needed for certain meals. There's a lot of math involved, a lot of interaction with the pump involved. Now you have the continuous glucose monitors talking to the pump. There are a couple on the market right now that do a pretty good job of really keeping the blood sugar in a target range and offloading the burden of living with diabetes. Again, in type 1 diabetes in particular, there is a lot of risk for low blood sugar. There's more risk for high blood sugar if you didn't dose your insulin properly. The advantages of a hybrid closed loop insulin pump is that you have these algorithms or programs on the pump talking to the monitor, making these decisions for you. It doesn't do everything for you, but it's really leaps and bounds past where we were a few years ago. So the pump companies are continuing to improve their programs to keep you in range more often, to reduce the frequency of low blood sugar and high blood sugar and reduce how severe those events are. The other issue that thankfully we deal with technology is most technology, as it advances, it's faster, it's smaller, it's more accurate. That's the direction all these are moving in. And we may have two connected pump and CGMs on the market now, there are others in the works and even more in the pipeline coming from other companies that are developing these products. And they all have the same goal in mind, to make your life with diabetes easier and offloading the burden of all those decisions that would go into living with diabetes every day.
Got it. Thank you, Michael, so much for your time today. And before we go, how can folks get in touch with Montefiore for more information on programs, treatments, etc., and just to learn how to live with diabetes during this time?
So I can give you one phone number is 866-MED-TALK. That's 866-633-8255. Or you can visit our website, montefiore.org/endocrinology.
Thank you very much, Michael Greenberg, nurse practitioner at Montefiore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate your time.
All right. Again, that number, it's 866-MED-TALK. It's 866-633-8255. You can also visit the website, as Michael gave us, montefiore.org/endocrinology for more information. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The Johnny Pacheco Latin Music and Jazz Festival, presented by Lehman College Music Department, the Lehman College Multimedia Center, and BronxNet Television, is an annual event which provides performance and learning opportunities for talented young musicians who are studying music in New York City schools. More than 250 students perform at this festival each year, and it's all taking place virtually in 2020. The Pacheco Festival has partnered with One Planet Education Network, an organization providing educational programming to schools worldwide via video conference since the early 1990s. Joining us now to discuss are Allan Molnar, producer of the Pacheco Festival, and George Newman, president and founder of One Planet Education Network. Welcome. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you. Pleasure to be
here.
Very
much.
Of course. So to start, Allan, can you just tell us a little bit more about the Johnny Pacheco Latin Music Festival over the years?
Well, the festival actually very early was what I like to consider a hybrid festival. It was a combination of online and in real time activity, music activity. And so to kind of reiterate what you said, I have a slightly tweaked mission statement for the festival as of this year. The Johnny Pacheco Latin Music and Jazz Festival at Lehman College is an annual event which provides performance and learning opportunities for talented young musicians who are studying music in New York City schools. And the Pacheco Festival is committed to developing worldwide audiences and collaborations with schools worldwide by way of live video conferencing, internet streaming, and other forms of broadcast media, including BronxNet Television. The festival gets bigger and better each year.
Thank you so much for sharing, Allan. And as we know, this year it is 100% remote. It's going virtual because of the situations in schools and, of course, COVID-19. The musicians couldn't get together. How is this year's festival being presented differently as opposed to the past years?
Well, because of the fact that we've had a component of online activity, a lot is kind of the same, just more of it. But, the current operating circumstances have, of course, become much more complex because of COVID-19. But our common ground of music and music education is stronger than ever. The music teachers who have dedicated their lives to serving our profession are doing an amazing job, doing an amazing job under very difficult circumstances. And I'm very inspired by the amazing accomplishments of all of my colleagues, and in particular, those who will be participating with their students at the Pacheco Festival this year.
Thank you. And this year you have a new partnership. It's with the One Planet Education Network. And we have George Newman here. George Newman is the president and founder of One Planet Education Network. George, can you just share more about your organization and your partnership with the 2020 Pacheco Festival this year?
Sure. Well, we've been around for over 20 years, as Allan mentioned, and we've been in technology and education primarily from the start. Online education has been our way of doing business. And we've done this, with New York schools from the outset back in really 1998. I had a little bit of a history in music and education prior to that, working as a consultant to the House of Blues, who had a blues program, education program. And we ended up linking Little Richard and other artists together with students from the various clubs using video conference back in the mid-90s. So Allan heard about this. We had friends in common in the middle, and we recently joined forces. We're mainly STEM focused. We focus on issues of sustainable community development, but I'm a musician myself, and to bring the arts and music to the forefront, this year was a particularly opportune moment with the spring. We had everybody kind of down in the dumps. The spirits were low. Our schools, our kids were home in New York. Every country we had from the 13 countries in Africa, spanning all the way to Australia, they were, just kind of plodding along. So I figured, let's end the year on a good note. So we came up with a We Are One theme. And so the kids to express their own sentiments personally through music, poster art, and, poetry and presentations of speeches on what We Are One meant to them. And music, of course, was a good piece of this. And the students just blew us away. And so what do we do for an encore after that? And so Allan and I put our heads together a little bit, and the Pacheco Festival was coming. And I had my new school year where we weren't sure what the heck was going to go on. But we decided to launch the Music from Spaceship Earth, as I called it, program, which is really learning about one another's cultures using the medium of music. And what more fun way can you find? And the kids, the teachers, everybody, has risen to the occasion again. And we just had our launch events last week, and it was a huge success. We were in, I don't know how many countries, but we spanned the whole day all the way to East Asia and Australia, along with Africa and Argentina and New York City schools. And we'll share a tape with you later. But now it's okay, what's an encore for the encore? And that's, I guess, coming together more deeply with Allan and the Pacheco Festival, and then extending this into the spring next year with the International Jazz Festival. And we're going to focus on countries, highlight like Liberia, Kenya, Australia, New York City, in different cultures of the world, but, exhibited through the music and the musical instruments. So that's kind of a long-winded detailed story about how this all came about.
No, thank you for that, George. And it sounds like this was an organic partnership and relationship with the Pacheco Festival and your organization as well. It sounds like you guys had your finger on the pulse early on in 1990, in the 1990s, to do this music partnership virtually with education, and it's all coming back to fruition now in 2020. So it's incredible, and we can't wait to see what you both put together with this partnership. Allan, I wanted to ask, putting together a festival of this size is of course no easy task, but you always make it happen every year. How has your work as a virtual music instructor helped you put this year's Pacheco Festival together?
Well, I started early with video conferencing. Now, George beat me by a good solid 10 years, I think. But I first became involved in online teaching in 2004, February of 2004, right when Apple released their then new iChat software and camera. And I started collaborating with a colleague of mine. I had just moved to New York at that time from Toronto, where I taught music in schools for 20 years. And, technology was always a big part of what I was doing in my teaching, but not in this way. So I saw an incredible opportunity to get engaged, to become engaged in the process of teaching online, collaborated with the gentleman I just mentioned, Mr. Stuart Smith, who we actually went to high school together years and years ago, and he was teaching in Winnipeg, Manitoba. So we put together what we called the Alive Project, Accessible Live Internet Video Education. Now, the Alive Project wasn't really a business. It was just a gathering of like-minded individuals who had a common goal for music education. And so we started creating projects. We got a little bit of grant funding here and there and began experimenting and working with schools all over. Ironically, as a result of this, I've never traveled so much in my life. I gave presentations at conferences and at universities in Australia. I did a residency at an international school in Hong Kong, presentations at the Grieg Academy in Norway, Percussive Arts Society event in Stockholm, work in Italy with the COSA International Percussion Workshops. And at the core of all this was distance learning via live video conferencing. So that was an unexpected surprise that I really enjoyed. So, all of that, the troubleshooting, solving technological problems that always come up, and all that. Nothing really caught me by surprise when we went to online learning. And of course, it's easy to miss something here or miss something there, but you learn, you adapt, and you basically move forward. But in terms of the concept of online teaching, in many ways, I'm able to do more things with the students. A lot of it is because of scheduling. If a student needs help and they're working during the day and they need help at 7:30 at night, I'm here. I'm in this room. I'm available. They can reach out to me, and we use screen sharing for the technology stuff that we do, and I can work with them with the music instruction. All of that. It's so much easier to make that happen. Of course, some elements of working with a performing group don't work quite as well. Performing together in the same room is more difficult, but my students are already working together online in real-time performances. My colleagues Alejandro Castro and Robert Winbeal actually beat me to the punch on that one, and they started doing that with the guitar ensemble, and I've been doing it with some of my students too. And there's some other opportunities too for working with MIDI instruments like this, where MIDI data is the only thing that goes across the web stream, and it makes it very easy for students to collaborate in real time with that. So we're exploring all that. Still not quite as good as being in the same room, but it's about as close as you can get. And it's a really exciting adventure to use technology in this way. And I like to say that the new cutting edge of music technology is the ability to work together in, well, maybe not the same room, but in rooms like this, or a room that could be in in someone's living room. You don't have to have a fraction of this equipment to make this happen. And so that's a new avenue for us to be able to explore, and to also utilize that and bring it to the festival in one of many ways is really exciting to move things forward. So, preparation is everything. I was lucky to be able to spend, the first 22 plus years of my career teaching in a very traditional classroom. And technology, of course, became a big part of that. But, my students had trombones and saxophones and drums and vibraphones and all those things at their disposal. That was a big part of their education, as it remains today. But to see the trends change from earlier uses of MIDI technology and all that to what it's become now, back to the way, in a way, that we made music back in the 70s together in the same room, is very exciting. So that all, I think, affects the festival and gave me a good operating paradigm to bring to as many schools as I possibly can.
Thank you, Allan. And I feel like the audience will see a packaged and ready show that day, that evening, when it starts premiering. But they won't see the behind the scenes of all the kinks and technical difficulties that you had putting it together. That's what happens in production, right? And this is what we have to move on forward with. But before we go, I wish we had more time, but can we please invite our audience to view Giant Steps from the Bronx, the 2020 Johnny Pacheco Latin Music and Jazz Festival? Where can they tune in? How? When?
Well, I'm very proud to say that Giant Steps from the Bronx, which is a TV program that I've developed for BronxNet Television, will be premiering for this year on December 4th, Friday, December 4th at 8 p.m. And I am so thrilled that we have this opportunity, because there are so many great things that we have to share, and BronxNet's support is really exciting. And I think, and the first show, by the way, will show some of that behind the scenes information, teaching online. So I'll be sharing a little bit of that too. So I hope you all tune in. It's going to be really good.
Awesome. Thank you so much, George. Thank you so much, Allan, for joining us today and sharing more about the 2020 Pacheco Festival.
Thank you very much.
Again, folks, you can begin to enjoy the 2020 Johnny Pacheco Latin Music Jazz Festival from the comfort of your living room by tuning in to Giant Steps from the Bronx, airing every Friday at 8 p.m. beginning on December 4th, here on BronxNet Optimum 67 and Files 2133, and online at bronxnet.tv. We'll be right back. Since 1990, Mercy Center has empowered women and their families in the South Bronx to liberate themselves from economic poverty. And through food distribution, online workshops, and more, their work has not ceased during this pandemic. Joining us now to discuss is Stephen J. Stritch, the third Executive Director at the Mercy Center. Thank you so much for joining us, Steve.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk about Mercy Center and what we do. So for 30 years, Mercy Center has been a hub here in the South Bronx community. And although our tagline says community and transformation, it's really more about building the sense of community within this community and helping people to feel safe and secure. And then in that kind of environment, they're able to recognize the power that they have to transform their lives. And that's really what we've tried to do for 30 years through the programs, classes, services, everything that Mercy Center offers to our participants.
Thank you, Steve, for sharing. And has Mercy Center's work shifted in a significant way due to the COVID-19 pandemic? How have things changed over at the Mercy Center?
So really for 30 years, Mercy Center has listened to the needs of the community and then responded. We're not an organization that says, oh, let's try doing such and such, and let's see if people will participate. No, we've listened to the community and we respond to the needs that they have. And so when the pandemic hit, we recognized that our people were going to be frontline workers. Our people are the service providers. And, they were going to be directly impacted by that. And because many of them are in the service industries, they lost their jobs. They didn't have the income that they had previously had. So we realized that we needed to do more than just provide the services. And fortunately, Tacombe was one of the first restaurants that contacted us about distributing meals. And from there, it grew to other organizations, some even within the Bronx. We had a vegan, restaurant that offered to provide vegan meals for us. And literally to date, we have distributed 22,180 meals. We also received groceries that we were able to distribute. And once one organization started sending them to us and they heard about it, then others also did it. And to date, we have distributed groceries for 3,560 families.
Wow.
We also realized that people need more than just food, to live. And so we were fortunate that we were able to get funding to provide debit cards for our participants. And to date, we have distributed 121,900 debit cards that for our participants to use to cover their rent or to buy supplies that they need, things other than the food that we were able to provide for them.
Incredible work as always over at the Mercy Center. Thank you so much for sharing, Steve, all the help that has been provided to the community here in the South Bronx for over 30 years. In the South Bronx. Can we also discuss, elaborate a little bit more on the food insecurity that has ravaged the Mott Haven community, even before the pandemic, but now especially throughout? How has Mercy helped aid the community through food pantry distribution events? Are they available for anyone who comes over to the Mercy Center, or do you have to sign up to receive this food?
So we do provide, we have 2,700 participants, families that we service during the course of the year. So we do offer, these food items to them first. But we also recognize that in this area of the Bronx where we are, there are a number of other people who don't come to us, but also need the food. And so we provide it first for our participants, but then we have also offered it to members of the community as well, the geographical community. Historically, Mercy Center has always done a Thanksgiving pantry, for example. And I think what makes our pantry different than others is that it's not just about making a collection of food and putting a turkey with it and saying to families, here, this is for you for Thanksgiving. The way Mercy Center has done it in the past was we were able to put out all of the food, and we had our families come and they would literally go through the line. And many of them would bring their children with them too, because they were able to choose the food that they wanted. And as you can imagine, it probably is hard for families to go shopping with their children and not be able to buy everything that the children want. But in our pantry, as they go through the line, they're able to choose which vegetables they want, the kind of potatoes they want, things like that. So we always try to maintain the dignity, or help our participants to maintain their dignity. This year, we recognized we couldn't do the pantry in the same way, but we didn't want we didn't want to lose what we already had established. So we were able to distribute over 500 turkeys. We did schedule people to come social distanced. We did most of the distribution outside, wearing masks. But the other thing is we also had a number of organizations, schools, churches, charities that provided us with income that we were able to go and purchase food gift cards, so that the families, we weren't just giving them a turkey and some of the staples that we had, that we had collected, but we were also able to give them a gift card that they could then go and buy the other foods that they needed to provide, for their families for a Thanksgiving meal.
And Steve, can we also learn about what other types of resources and services Mercy Center has continued to provide Bronxites with during this pandemic?
Okay, so most people come to Mercy Center to learn the English language. That's basically their introduction. So they sign up for the classes and then they learn about the other services, that we provide. And so when we decided in March that we needed to go remote, that was the first thing. So first we decided actually on a Thursday, and we didn't end our on-site services until Monday night, because that gave us a chance to meet with every class in person between Thursday and Monday night to basically instruct them on how our classes were going to continue on their phones. So we did that. And then we also realized that beyond the phones, they were going to have competition at home with their children who were also working online. And so we were able to get funding to provide tablets for our participants. So we did our adult education classes, we moved remote. We also did the same with our after-school program. So our after-school program started working with our students remotely, not just on the academic, activities, but also social activities. Because as the weeks turned into months, we realized how hard it was for those children to be home and not seeing their friends and the members of the community, that we are. So we started also offering activities for them that were online. And then, eventually, as we moved back into on-site services, we do have the after-school program running where they're able to come to Mercy Center in very small groups and work one-on-one with basically tutoring and some different art projects, that we're able to do. We also recognize that where our families were struggling with the stress of this environment. And so our family workers were able to work with them on Zoom meetings on how to deal with stress. We also recognized that because this was a stressful time, we needed to do more workshops on domestic violence so that our participants, had the resources they needed to deal with the stress and some of the circumstances of that happened within their home. We also did workshops. We have also done workshops on rent eviction prevention to help people to realize, what they can do on behalf of themselves.
Thank you for sharing, Steve. And does the Mercy Center usually have like a survey of some sort in order to assess what issues are affecting the community? Because all of these, of course, are issues that have been exacerbated due to the pandemic in this area. So I'm really glad to hear that these resources are being offered online for these families.
Yes. So most of our surveys, we do written surveys at the end of each class, like at the end of each semester. So we do get feedback from the adult education students. But we also, though, have our family workers who work with individual families who get feedback from them as well. And so for our family workers, once we went to online services, they were dealing with all of the families first by phone, in phone calls, but then we also were able to teach them how to use Zoom so that we could do individual Zoom meetings with each of the families. And it was through those conversations that we really heard what the needs of the community were and what we needed to do to help meet those needs.
Thank you for sharing. And let's say someone is tuned in right now and is interested in participating in an English learning workshop. How can they do this? How can they participate?
So we do registration basically 3 different times during the year. And what registration means is you come to Mercy Center, and we did do registration in person. We had everyone scheduled so that they came in one at a time and met with one of our family workers, completely masked and taking all the necessary precautions. But the idea is that we basically interview them and test them on where they are with their English English language, so that we're then able to place them in a class where they're going to meet success without being bored. They still need to be challenged, and we need to pick them up. So we have 3 different levels of instruction, and we do the testing. So they register first, they're given a time to come to be tested, and then from there they're placed into these classes.
Is there an email or phone number that folks can call or contact in order to find out more?
Yes. So our main number is 718-993-2789. Our website is mercycenterbronx.org. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, as well, and make posts, accordingly. But the best place to find out the most recent and most up-to-date information is through our website.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. Mercy Center also has an upcoming 2020 virtual gala. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that event, and also help us, spread the information of how people can support and also provide help to these families and help Mercy continue to allocate this resources to families in need?
All right. So basically, our budget is $3.6 million. We don't charge for any classes, services, programs, nothing. But it means we have to raise $3.6 million just to stay functioning and providing what we do. So we do look to our fundraising events as being a very important part of our budget. And so when we weren't able to have our gala, which is our biggest fundraiser in the spring, we decided first to postpone it to the fall, hoping. But when we realized we couldn't do that, we have now gone to a virtual gala. And so our gala is actually on December 8th from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. We realize that people are on Zoom meetings and on their computer all day long. So we will only ask for 1 hour of their time. And during that hour, we will educate you. We will help you to learn about Mercy Center and what we've done, during this pandemic, and what we have done basically for 30 years. But we also will entertain you. So we have a choir that's been closely connected to Mercy Center who will entertain us with some holiday songs. We will honor some very deserving volunteers who have worked with us over the years. And we will also give you an opportunity to support our work as well. So we will have a paddle raise for Fund a Need, which is really funding our needs to provide these services and programs, at no cost to the community. We also will have some silent auction items that you can, support us and get something actually in return. And then we also will have some reception rooms so that you can join with our very deserving honorees to celebrate the evening with them. So all of this, I guarantee, will be within 1 hour. Everything is planned minute by minute.
Thank you so much, Steve, for sharing with us, and best of luck. Thank you to Mercy Center for all that you've been doing in the South Bronx for the past 30 years.
Thank you, and thanks for giving us this opportunity to share what we do.
Of course. Stephen J. Stritch III is the Executive Director at Mercy Center, and we invite you to visit mercycenterbronx.org for more information on upcoming virtual workshops, events, and more, food pantry distributions that are going on here in Mount Haven. Also, you can call 718-993-2789 for more information on anything you'd like to learn about what's going on over at Mercy Center. That's all for our show today. Thank you for tuning in to BXRx. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, wishing you and your family safety and wellness now and always.